Hey folks, thanks for clicking on Pro Talk Outdoors. This week we're diving deep again. This time Wyatt and I sit down for a conversation with Jason Matzinger. And if you don't know who Jason is, you're going to want to listen to this podcast because he's a tremendous hunter out west, does a great job with videography, and he has a tremendous message. He probably does as much, if not more, for conservation than anyone in the outdoor industry. So we were tickled to catch up with Jason. Before we get him on the line, though, some quick news updates. On September 13th, the Pro Talk Outdoors group is going to be in Effingham, Illinois for a live podcast that we're going to record with Don Higgins. And this is going to be at Christ Church Sportsman's Banquet in Effingham, Illinois. There's still some tickets available for that. It's going to be a tremendous event, a lot of giveaways. Dr. Grant Woods is going to be on site as well. So I encourage you to go to our Pro Talk Outdoors page. There's a link there where you can purchase some tickets. Be sure to come out and join us for that event. Also, if you haven't yet had the opportunity, go to our Facebook page or Carbon TV or our YouTube channel. Check out Pro Talk Outdoors in a Rut. We have began releasing Season 2 episodes, and we'll be bringing those to you about once a week, releasing around about on Tuesdays. So, in addition to that, we've got some big news on the horizon, and I can't really release too much about it right now. It's still in the works, but we are working on just a blockbuster deal as far as we're concerned and how we're going to be bringing you our podcast in the future. So just wanted to throw it out there a little bit. We're working on the deal. Almost got it finalized. I think it's going to go through, and it's going to be pretty special. We're really excited about it. So be looking for news on that in the coming weeks. Right now, let's roll on into this podcast. Here's Jason Matzinger. Hey guys, welcome back to another edition Pro Talk Outdoors. We're going to dive deep again today. Wyatt and myself sitting here in the Rivers household, and we're joined by somebody. It's been a little bit tough getting this gentleman online because he's really busy, got a lot going on. Mr. Jason Matzinger. Jason, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate we were finally able to connect, and just look forward to chatting with you guys and the opportunity to talk with you.
So Jason, if you don't mind, give us an introduction of yourself, maybe kind of your childhood leading up to where you are now. What prompted you to want to get into the outdoor industry and start filming and putting out some of the work that you've been putting out the last several years?
Yeah, sure. Well, for me, I think like a lot of hunters, I started out growing up in a hunting family and had the passion for it and wanted to just always follow it in one way or the other. So I got the opportunity to guide right out of high school on a private ranch here outside of Bozeman. It was just a tremendous opportunity to, be out there hunting, getting paid to hunt, and just learning every single day and being among the wildlife. And that sort of just led me into, that was really at the time where hunting TV was starting to really be on the rise. There's some of the shows were really becoming popular, and filming your hunt was something that was kind of becoming something that more and more people could do because the advancements in technology and smaller cameras, cheaper cameras, and things like that. So I started to want to try to film my hunts here because I just felt like where I lived and the opportunities I was blessed with right out my back door and the work that I did, I just felt like, I could create content as good as anything that I was currently seeing on TV, and felt like I could put my own twist on it to kind of tell my side of the story a little better. And from there, it just sort of, blossomed. I started filming more and more. I started gathering a huge archive of footage of just Western big game. I mean, everything from mountain lions to mountain goats and elk and moose, and sheep and deer. So I didn't really have a purpose. I didn't really know what I was doing or how I would ever break into doing anything more than just filming it, but I knew I love to film it, and I love the challenge that brought of, not only trying to get one person in position perfectly on a hunt, but two people into position perfectly working together. And it's just, I got lucky. I was able to sort of partner with all the right people off the bat, and it's hard to believe that was 10 years ago already.
That was my next question. How long had into high country been going? I remember it being quite a while because I kind of vaguely remember when it first came out, on TV, and it was a show that me and my dad, we always sat down and watched together because we just felt like it had the right message. It was really, really good content, and it's just blossomed from there. I mean, the footage you guys are putting out now as to 10 years ago, I'm sure you'll agree with that. I mean, it's just completely and totally different. But yeah, I think the message is still there, and that's what's so cool about it.
Yeah, it's really cool because I felt like sort of, when I first broke into this, the people that were really the successful ones were the ones that were getting all the biggest animals and getting all the best footage, and there really wasn't, storytelling and hunting really weren't combined at that point. It was more just who could get the best kill shot of the biggest animal. That's what drove the industry, and it's cool to see that sort of. It's cool to see the industry kind of come back down from that and sort of back to a little more grounded approach to everything, I think.
I agree 100% with that. I mean, I think it's much more relatable for the average guy. For
sure.
I mean, because that's what we're out there doing. We're chasing memories. We're chasing, stories. We're not necessarily. I mean, sometimes we're chasing, a big animal or what have you. But I mean, it's the memories and the stories that we take with us. It's not the. You understand what I'm saying. Well, I know Dave understands.
I mean, here's the thing from our point of view. Midwestern guys that grew up hunting whitetails and just turkeys, and that's pretty much the extent of what we have in our area, other than small game. Unless we travel out west, it's kind of romanticized when you watch stuff that like what you're doing, Jason. It's like you just kind of fall in love with the screen and you fall in love with the hunt, even though. And I'll be honest with you, it just makes you just want to take part in that. It makes you want to travel out west and experience everything that you're capturing, with your hunts. And
I do not watch very many Western shows at all. But I watch yours. I watch like the Western Hunter. I watch the Eastmans. Some stuff like that. And I really, really enjoy those programs. And it's just because I sit there and romanticize about it, like you said, Dave.
Sure. Yeah, no, I feel lucky. I mean, I was born and raised here in Bozeman, Montana, and one of the few, the proud, that can even say that anymore. But another part of the equation is just how much of the industry has come to Bozeman. Bozeman is such a mecca kind of hotspot for Western sort of hunting that I just feel so lucky to not only have the hunting opportunities, but then. Just so many of the companies and great partners I have so close that I can, we can just develop the relationships and really work closely together and work on creating quality content. And, there's just a lot of continuity between the conservation organizations and myself and the partners out here. It's just, it's a great thing, and it's really great to see the conservation messaging become, so kind of trendy right now. I don't want to use that word because I would like to think that it's got more meaning than just being trendy. But
regardless,
we'll
it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is great to see, and it's just the support I've seen through the conservation films that we've been working on and the different organizations and trying to tell the animal story is. Man, it's just been great. The support's been outstanding, and the filming and the making of them is just so fun and rewarding.
So tell us more about some of the conservation films that you've been working on. I know there's the Circle of Life, Project Mule Deer, Project Elk. I know Project Elk was released at an Avalanche game. Is that correct? A few months back, and then you said that. Circle of Life and then Project Mule Deer, they're coming out this month. So if you don't mind, make a little pitch for those, because I think that I know Project Elk was
award winning. I mean,
yeah,
it
was incredible.
I mean, it won some awards. I'm sure, I know. And then and also I'm glad you brought up conservation, Jason, because I mean you won, and I think we chatted a little bit on about it on messaging, but to me the most prestigious award, or the most rewarding award that a guy could receive, is it Conservation of the Year through 2% Conservation that you got?
Yeah, it was the Conservation Media Award. It was the first ever. They teamed up with POMA, the Professional Outdoor Media Association, and came up with an award that wanted to honor, just any conservation piece around the world that helped bring hunting as conservation to the mainstream, helped tell the story in a different way, and just help paint that picture to maybe people that don't understand our way of life. And so they got submissions worldwide on numerous different species and projects and things like that. And yeah, the Project Elk ended up getting the very first recipient of that award. So like you say, what an honor. I mean, for me and the work I do and where my heart and soul is at, I agree. If there's any award, that's the one that means something to me. So super proud to have it, and super proud of the work that 2% for Conservation is doing, alongside these other conservation organizations. I mean, it's really cool to see the movement and the force that it's created out here, and the amount of work that's getting done. It's a great thing to be a part of, and just an honor to see so many great people in this industry coming together for the common goal. It's a cool time in our sport. And it's critical, but it's a neat time.
It really is, and I'm probably going to sound a little, I don't know. It's probably going to come across as slightly negative, but I don't mean it this way. But I feel like that you're right. In your area out there, from my perception, it seems like you guys are very conservation minded. I don't feel like that in the Midwest or out east that we do near enough. I mean, I don't think that the message is there yet. I mean, there's a group, a few groups that do pay attention to conservation and maybe say the right thing about conservation, but I really think we're missing the boat back home here as far as what we can do to help conservation.
And that's I agree with that. Like backcountry angler or
hunters and
anglers. I'm sorry. I'm a member of it, and they're trying to start an Indiana chapter. Well, they're having a hard time getting enough members. That sucks. There's no other way to say that. That sucks. What can we do? I guess as outdoorsmen, what can we do from your perspective, and what have you guys done out west to kind of make that movement push a little bit harder?
Well, I think part of the problem, I don't know if it's a problem, but part of what we're facing here is like, the reason that we're conservation minded out west here, I believe, is because there's still stuff to conserve.
Yeah,
and
right.
That's not knocking the east by any means.
But
it's just there is no public lands. There is no vast chunks of 1 million acres of BLM to be able to access. There is no, the white-tailed deer. There's so many of them. You can shoot like 9 in some states before you.
Yeah.
I think that's the struggle, and why conservation isn't on the forefront. There's no land to conserve, and the wildlife that's there is thriving. It's doing great. There's tons of it,
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And I'm not necessarily super concerned about our whitetail population around here, but I mean, I am. Even somebody that's never hunted out west, I mean, I am concerned about those lands out there.
It really does affect everybody, and I think that's the thing is, just to see a group like the Wild Sheep Foundation that, you wouldn't think would affect a lot of people. Not a lot of people get to hunt the wild sheep, but man, I'll tell you what, the working alongside of them and seeing the passion and the effort, and really the sense of urgency of, we're not messing around. This isn't selling a product. This isn't something that we can just decide the marketing isn't working and reshift. I mean, we're talking about the future of an entire animal species, so we can't sit on our pockets, and we can't, with any wildlife out here. I mean,
while we're on wild sheep, what's the greatest demise of the wild sheep population? The introduction of tame animals, is that correct? Of tame sheep?
Yeah, in today's world, that's the biggest threat.
Right.
One of the biggest threats. Encroachment on habitat that they can even live in.
Yeah.
And then, the threats by domestic livestock encroachment. And, I had a great conversation about this yesterday, because we're right in the middle of this. I mean, we got the biggest wool growers and the Wild Sheep Foundation right here, so it's great to be able to see these guys coming together, try to work together. It's not I don't think it's the major commercial operations of the sheep that we need to worry about, and it maybe sounds backwards, but I think it's because those people are fully aware. They're responsible. They've got their stuff together. They know what's up. And they don't want to see the demise of the wild sheep. Nobody does. But I think it's the people that buy 20 acres up against the foothills of the mountains, and they want to have their little ranchette or whatever, and they buy a cow and 2 chickens and 2 sheep and a llama, and now they're Montana ranchers, and I think that those are the people, once again, no offense, but it's reality. They just don't know. And all of a sudden they've positioned these sheep up against a vital wild sheep population, and now it's a threat to, hundreds of thousands of animals, and they don't even know it.
Well,
and
let me ask you this, because I'm just I'm not versed in this whatsoever. I mean, Wyatt knows more about this than I do, and I'm completely ignorant, to be honest with you.
I'm pretty ignorant too.
Tell me this: what is it about the domesticated animals or the livestock that poses a harm to wild sheep?
So basically, just the interaction between wild and domestic sheep. The wild sheep can pick up what they call Mycoplasma ovipneumoniae. And what that is it's a bacteria that develops in their lungs, and it fills up their lungs with fluids. And what happens is the bighorns actually almost drowned in their own fluids. And so the way the Wild Sheep Foundation has sort of explained it to me, now granted, I'm not a scientist either. I'm doing my best to relay what super smart people have told me, is that the wild sheep almost, all of them almost carry what they would consider similar to like an HIV.
Okay.
And so it's not the HIV that gets them, but if they get affected by anything else, it's too much to overcome.
Yeah, their immune systems run down.
And so when they come in contact with domestic sheep through fluids, or there's pictures of wild sheep breeding domestic sheep, documented things like that. That's where the problems lie. And once that gets transferred and that wild sheep goes back to his herd and it spreads, then it's out of control before the fish and game knows how to take care of it. And at that point, there's only 2 ways to handle it. That's try to capture and test and do everything they can on the wild sheep. And if they're not able to do that, then lethal removal is the second option. And, you can imagine when it costs so much money to manage these animals, and then to have to turn around and just put them down, it's not a good feeling as a wildlife manager. So I mean, the wild sheep used to be in the millions as far as we can tell. Early records document what could be up to millions of sheep, and the combination of unregulated market hunting and the spread of disease is what really led to the plummeting of sheep numbers originally. But sort of since we've recognized that in the late 50s and started putting money into relocating them and putting and keeping sheep on the mountain, which is the Wild Sheep Foundation sort of creed, we've seen a threefold increase in their numbers since then. So we're on the rise. But moving forward, yeah, domestic sheep are the biggest threat to them.
So,
And
go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I was going to say it's just interesting because that film is going to launch through Amazon Prime and YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on September 10th. So not this coming Monday, but the following Monday. So we've been diving, deep into that one, but also Project Mule Deer, which is going to launch September 22nd on the Sportsman's Channel from 7 to 8 p.m. And then it'll immediately follow on the Outdoor Channel from 8 to 9 p.m. on September 22nd. So we'll kind of hit both channels there, one after the other. But, what we found with mule deer, the biggest threat to them is, human encroachment on available habitat. And we've already overtaken so much of what's good mule deer habitat, because where humans want to live in the foothills of the mountains and the outskirts, the up off the river, like that's perfect mule deer habitat. Yeah. So we've gobbled up a big chunk of it already in the West. And so what's the most crucial for the mule deer at this point is keeping big chunks of winter and summer habitats available and connectivity to those habitats. And they're super, super critical. I mean, not every piece of ground is fit for an animal, and sometimes that's hard for people to understand. They think that every piece of ground can be a multi-use chunk of property, and it's just not true. The demands of a wild sheep, the demands of a mule deer are so finite that
I read an article or I listened to a podcast or something. I can't remember exactly where I heard this information, but they were talking about mule deer specifically. I think it was in Colorado, where they've cut out shed hunting because of the amount of energy that mule deer were expelling by getting up and things like that, getting pushed around so much, and they've even closed certain trails for hiking and stuff from February to May or something like that. Now, do you guys have that as well in Montana? And what's kind of your feelings on that? Do you think that that's a plausible cause of some of the decline in mule deer populations or elk populations, or any?
Oh, I definitely think that without a doubt, on some rare occasions, that it's probably caused the overstress of the animal and, just put too much on them to make it through the winter. But I don't think it's a leading cause of, the decline in numbers by any means. Do I think it's a good idea in regions? I absolutely think it's a good idea. Shed hunting is becoming more and more competitive all the time. Yeah. And it is a crucial time for animals. And, different terrains, different habitats are different. If you go to the eastern side of Montana to shed antler hunt for mule deer or elk or something like that, I mean, those elk never hardly see snow anyway. It's a pretty mild winter. They do really well out there. Sure, they might be a little tired from the rut and stuff, but, they're not like walking in at the same time on bulls that are wintering just outside of Yellowstone Park and have been in snow up to their brisket all year,
Right.
So I think just being smart and being sensitive to the animal and what they've been going through is, I think we're going to have to think about that more and more, because shed hunting, just in my short time on this earth, has went from something that barely anybody does to something that's now. Just it's insane.
Yeah, it's the same way around here in the last 5 or 10 years. I mean, it's just blown up.
So I think that we're going to probably see more of that across the West, keeping these ranges closed till, say, April 15th or May 15th or something, until those animals really have a chance to sort of come out of that,
and that
expands of time.
That expands past shed hunters as well. I mean, that expands into people that are just out hiking and things.
Totally.
I mean, they're putting the same amount of pressure and stuff on them as somebody that was shed hunting is.
Totally. I mean, Absolutely.
But
So
there again, that's another situation where hunters and non-hunters, we kind of have to work together, as hard as that
for
is
sure.
sometimes.
Well, it's just becoming needed more and more every
Absolutely.
day in every scenario. I mean, multi-use pieces of property. I just had a meeting with the Montana Backcountry Horsemen and the I don't even know what they call themselves, but it's a mountain biker group here
Mm-hmm.
out of the Gallatin Valley, and they want to be able to come up with a system to share the trails because they're having more and more biker horse conflicts on these trails. Guys will come whipping around the corner on a bike going 35 miles an hour, and you got a pack string of horses coming up, and
Oh
Oh,
gosh,
that's
it's
got to be
just
dangerous.
it's causing more and more accidents all the time. And so they want to create classes that make the bikers, whoever's interested, you know better at reading horse behavior and knowing how to approach horses and what the best thing to do is when you come up behind them or you come in front of them. And they're also taking the horses that are hiking these trails a lot with these guys, and they're running them through courses where they are riding bikes out around corners and getting these horses used to the sound of pedals and chains and
yeah,
wheels and all this kind of stuff. So that's just one example of how two groups who you got the old school cowboys who've been here forever are wanting to work with the the young hot rods
yeah,
now.
right.
And it's cool to see. It's really cool to see, and it's cool to see how much these people want to solve this problem for the future. So I think, we're just on the tip of the iceberg of figuring out ways to use this stuff together.
Yeah, I think that's great. Hey, I wanted to ask you a couple more questions about the sheep. For people that maybe aren't familiar, can you talk a little bit about like the lottery and stuff for the sheep and kind of the whole tag system? And then also, I kind of like to see what your predictions are for the future. I mean, if the sheep population continues to grow, will there be more tags available? I'm assuming in 20 years, or do you think that it is where it needs to be due to the landscapes that are left?
No, I think that there's a lot of room left to grow for the wild sheep. I think their future is most certainly in our hands, and probably even less in our hands than the 80% of the population's hands.
Yeah.
The reality is, and the Circle of Life really focuses on this subject of why the lottery tags are so important, especially to the wild sheep. Just a very quick number is the money raised on those auction tags by the Wild Sheep Foundation every year in Reno accounts for 70% of all of the funding for wild sheep in North America. And we're barely scraping by.
Yeah. Well, and
so I mean,
it's been a few
it
years.
doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out if you pull that, what's going to happen to the sheep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and those tags sell for a ton of money. What was it, like 480,000 was the most expensive tag that's ever been sold?
Yep. In 2013, they auctioned the Montana governor's tag off for $480,000.
Wow.
And
that's great.
And this year, I think it went for 338,000, I believe, or 331, somewhere right around in there. It averages just over $300,000 since it's been in existence. And, I had a chance to sit down with one of the governor tag holders and interview him for the Circle of Life. He's actually the guy who held the Montana governor tag when I was hunting my sheep last year in Montana. So he was the perfect guy to talk to.
Yeah.
And what I loved about what he said, his name is Jeff Damaski, great guy, super good conservationist. And he, the one thing he really said that resonates with me was, sure, I do donate some money to get a sheep and hunt, and everybody says, oh, you just want to get a big sheep. But he says, nobody ever talks about the hundreds of thousands of dollars I donate where there isn't an animal at the end, and it wasn't for a tag, and it wasn't in an auction in front of the public. Nobody ever wants to talk about all that money. But they sure want to hang their hat on, buying these governor tags. And he said, well, but the reality is if I don't buy these tags and these guys don't buy these tags, there won't be any wild sheep left for these kids to enjoy, and that's period. There's no doubt about it. And anybody that's tied in the sheep world understands that. I mean, it costs, since wild sheep started transplanting them and moving them and augmenting these herds and trying to boost up their populations, which has been, wildly successful. They've done over 24,000 actions since they started doing this, and the average is about $5,000 per sheep to do this.
Wow. So
that's the kind of money we're talking it takes to manage this animal. Just one animal in North America, And when you think that one hunter-based organization accounts for 70% of all the funding that comes in for this animal, it makes it very clear, what hunting dollars does. And there's no doubt in my mind, without guys like Jeff and the people that buy the governor tags, there's no way I would have ever drawn one tag, or certainly not two in my lifetime. So, I think that if we can maintain and continue to build and get more members and involvement and people passionate about the wild sheep, I think we can continue to do good things. There's definitely areas we can continue to expand the sheep into and research and bolster the herds we do have. And but just like all hunting, ultimately it's going to come down to our role in society and what the 80% deems as where we sit, unfortunately.
I'm almost ashamed to say, but I'm sitting here and I'm learning a ton about the wild sheep and everything, based on what you're telling me here, and I didn't know a lot of this stuff. And if I don't know it, I guarantee you that the bulk majority of people that hunt and fish and do things like we do, I'd say east of the Mississippi, they're not versed in this. They don't know about it near as much as they should. And when you talk about the 80% that doesn't hunt, there's probably not a better example of hunters leading the charge for conservation than the wild sheep and what's going on. Because you don't see PETA offering any assistance to help the wild sheep, I'm sure.
No, you don't. And that's, all across hunting, any animal really, hunter dollars are vastly the majority of the funding that comes in for this wildlife. I wouldn't want to sit here and say it's the only money, because I'm sure it's not, but it's the money that's making a difference, and I certainly wouldn't want to leave out any of the other conservation organizations for that matter. Man, to see the work these guys put in, RMEF and the millions of acres they've opened, just in their 26, 27 years of existence, the RMEF has donated over $1 billion to wildlife conservation. Wow. Just the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, over $1 billion. They've opened up over 1 million acres to public hunting. So, and it's not just hunting, to the public.
Right, it's not just hunting.
That's your mountain bikers, your horse riders, your
hikers, whatever.
Yeah, hikers, exactly. Everybody, bird watchers.
But what's great too is the support for the private land people. I don't want to leave them out. Like Shane Mahoney told me one time that private land is the next frontier for wildlife conservation. And I absolutely believe that. Yeah. It's the only place we're allowed to conserve them, really, or given a chance. And, it's great to see the RMEF work with landowners. And there's a lot of pride in these family farms and ranches, and they don't want to see them go, but they fall on tough times, and they have to look for ways to keep the thing afloat. I've even heard of the Elk Foundation basically funding a ranch for the ranchers to stay there, work their way of life, as long as they allow the public to be able to come in and hunt. And then after X amount of years, the family can either buy it back or it goes into this land thing that RMEF has, like a trust kind of thing. And so, not only just opening public lands, but being able to help the American farmers and ranchers continue their way of life too, because it all goes together. And the wild sheep, not working against the sheep industry, they want to work with them. They want to come up with ideas of, hey, let's figure this out. I do think there's a place for wool in Montana, and a great place for them, but we also need a place for the sheep. So let's just sit down and figure this out, and so yeah, I mean, I think we're to that point where we need to really start hashing this stuff out.
I saw an interesting thing. I think it was Sunday morning. It was on CBS Sunday morning. It was this last Sunday. It was on, and I was going through some stuff on my laptop, and it just popped up. But it was talking about some native grasslands. I think it was in eastern Montana. I don't know if you saw it or not, Jason, or familiar with it. It was kind of some conflict that farmers were having with the government wanting to come in and buy it, and then make it a reserve. From what I took, or I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, I don't. It did a good job because it explained both people's feelings on things from the government side and then the ranchers and stuff too. I thought it was very unbiased. So
sure. Yeah, no, I think more of those pieces are needed. For sure.
Agree.
In fact, one of the future projects I'd like to do is kind of, a piece onto the sheep disease, and I would like to work with the wool grower industry, and I'd like to work with the Wild Sheep Foundation, and I'd really like to just tell this story and just make it an educational piece, so more people are aware that this is a real thing that we need to be conscious of.
Right, that's true. It's kind of one of those things, out of sight, out of mind. I think definitely in the East, that's the way it is, because what you guys are doing out there, we're like, we don't even think about it necessarily. I mean, we have to be conscientious to think about that, and then you expand into the 80% of people that don't hunt at all. We have to do a better job, because it's great to educate hunters, but we have to do a better job of educating the 80% and making stuff seen to them.
Yeah.
Well, and
yeah.
You mentioned earlier, Jason, about the land usage, when we were talking about mule deer and then also with the wild sheep. Most people don't realize that, not all land's created equal, and those sheep and those mule deer aren't just going to adapt, because out east here, we, in the Midwest, you could pave a parking lot and then just abandon it for a little while, and whitetails are going to be running around the thing. I mean, they adapt, and they'll be in subdivisions and everything, and I guess people just kind of assume, well, if the whitetail can do that, then so can the sheep, and so can the mule deer and the elk, and it's just not it's not apples and apples.
No, not at all. I mean, the elk, yes, elk are a hardy animal. They can find a way to adapt and overcome, it seems like, if given the opportunity. But mule deer and bighorn sheep, any wild sheep specifically, they're definitely the more fragile of the western big game. Very susceptible to disease, very susceptible to human encroachment, and I've learned how fragile they are the more that I get into it, and it's it is frustrating that more people aren't involved, because you realize just how fragile this thing is that we're dealing with here, and time really is of the essence, because there really is nobody else out there caring for the wildlife like hunters. I mean, I know we say it all the time, and it becomes this like a rhetoric thing that we just spit out, but it really is true. I mean, the days and the weeks and the months that we spend out there scouting, watching the animals, filming them, tearing down fences, helping with water entrapments, relocation programs, urban deer transplant stuff. I mean, and it's not knocking people who don't hunt or aren't involved, but you just don't see anybody but hunters out there doing that. And it's a.
Do you think that's because they don't care, or do you think it's because they don't understand what the issues are?
I just don't think they're aware. I don't
That's
think the
that's how I feel.
80% is
Yeah.
really aware. I think that they want to help, and I think they do care about wildlife, but I think they don't know where to start if they're not a hunter. And I think, they're afraid if if they're not a hunter and they give money to the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, they don't understand it. Like, well, I'm
They
not
think
a hunter.
that's
Why would I give money to a hunting organization to help animals?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's an uphill battle
Well,
that we've got here, but it's every project we do, we're trying to chip away at that and try to get it out there more and more.
I would assume the Project Elk thing, releasing at the Avalanche game, probably did more. That film probably did more to expose the 80% than anything that's probably ever been done. I mean, for that matter, or equal to that. Because think about how many people that are at that hockey game that they don't hunt, but they sat through this whole film and learned something.
Yeah, for sure. That was a tremendous
Yeah, that was a
breakthrough.
tremendous opportunity.
well, okay.
I think it's kind of the tip of the iceberg of the way we could think about, getting these messages out there more and more.
Yeah, so that's a good point there, Jason. So as I mean, it's kind of a twofold question, but as folks in the outdoor industry, and I mean, because you're doing a fantastic job bringing these things to light, and there's other folks in your area that are doing a good job bringing these things to light. But what about all these groups that are based out of the Midwest and the East and the South and everything? What can we do in the outdoor industry to help push that conservation movement?
I think just becoming more active, becoming more involved on any level, and trying to help spread that word as best we can, and just making people understand, like, look, you may never be affected by the wild sheep. You may never have the opportunity to actually hunt them or whatever, but understand, without us, that you'll never even see them.
Yeah.
Your kids will never even have the chance to see them. So I think, trying to think about bigger picture stuff. I mean, I'm a member of the National Deer Alliance. I'm a member of the Sportsman Alliance. I'm a member of the NWTF, the Western Bear Foundation, because it all matters and we need it all. So I think just trying to just help spread the word of the good work that's being done out here. That's for everyone to enjoy. You don't have to be an elk hunting fanatic to dream about elk and maybe one day get an over-the-counter tag here and hunt some of these million acres that RMEF has opened up. Without those dollars, it just won't happen, and there will never be that opportunity.
Right.
So, and it's not just West anymore. I mean, we were just having a conversation last night at dinner about the tremendous elk herd opportunities now in Pennsylvania and Kentucky because of the relocation program that the RMEF has done, and transplanting and moving herds out there. And look at what a tremendous success it's been.
Oh, the Kentucky population has just been ridiculous. I'm not up on the Pennsylvania one, but yeah.
Yeah, now you can't even draw a tag, and there's just monsters getting killed there.
Yep.
So it's like, don't think it can't affect you out there. It's just the more money we have, the more support we have, the more opportunity we have to spread further and further and further. I mean, look at the mule deer now that are in Nebraska and some other states, moving even further east, and South Dakota is becoming it's always had mule deer, but it's becoming a real solid mule deer state. And I think just the more support, the more help, the more awareness is just going to help the entire hunting community be stronger and do more things and be more relevant in today's world.
It's a very good point. So let me ask you this, and this is maybe not necessarily conservation minded, but say somebody like us, or anybody from the East, from the Midwest, we want to come out and we want to hunt mule deer, want to hunt elk, want to hunt antelope, something like that. What processes would you go through? Never seeing that type of country before, never being on a never hunting elk, never hunting mule deer, never hunting antelope, whichever of those three, what processes would you go through to find a good area, put in your tags, all of the stuff that we don't do, don't typically do around here? Or is there like a good resource to go to?
There's a couple resources I'd recommend for somebody interested in coming out west. One, as you've mentioned earlier, is the Eastman's family, and everything they've got going. They've got their membership research section.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really good information in that. They've got a lot of information on draw odds, different states, where's good hunting opportunity. Go Hunt also has assembled an incredible amount of information based on statistics and things like that, as far as drawing odds and trophy quality and things like that. And then additionally, on top of that, as far as just, fundamental ways to plan your hunt and ways to get started, my buddy Randy Newberg does about as good a job as anybody on educating the public on opportunities that are right in front of you that are not super expensive. I think, if a guy digs into the information that Eastman's, Randy, Go Hunt, any of those have put out, I think you can start to get a really solid knowledge base on sort of where to start. And then, it's one of those things. Once you get out here, one thing leads to another, and the next thing you know, you got a honey hole you don't want to share with anybody.
Right.
So, yeah, it's I could see how it'd be very daunting. I mean, to be honest with you, coming out east and hanging a stand and hunting whitetail, I've hunted Ohio. I have no idea how those guys pick a tree stand. I'm like, this seems so random to me. There's no trail. There's no creek bottom. There's no bedding. Why am I here? And then the first deer you see walks like right past your tree. You're like, huh, interesting. I have no idea how that happened, but cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. It's just everything's just so different. It's incredibly intimidating for me, and it's something I plan to do, is go out west and hunt multiple species at some point, and but it's intimidating, and
very intimidating.
Honestly, that's part of what's, held me back.
And and to that point also, I mean, and we had an opportunity to go to Colorado on an elk hunt, and we kind of bypassed that because it from our understanding, it was kind of more like hunting whitetails in that operation than it was actually hunting out west.
I want the experience.
We want the whole. It's romanticized in things that we see out there, and stuff that like you're filming, Jason. That's the experience that we want. It's not about coming out to, what's our success odds. What's our odds of success? That's not what it's about. It's about the experience that we're after.
Yeah,
sure.
I want to be miserable for 10 days, sleeping in a camp. I mean, I do, though, you know what I mean? And when I'm there, I'm going to be like, Jesus, is this ever going to be over? And then I'm going to get home and immediately want to go back, That's what I want. That's what sticks out in my mind of things that I've done. It's the stuff that pushes you.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's elk hunting. You want to be miserable for 10 days, come on out. But no, it's awesome. I'm so jacked up. Our season starts Saturday, and I've got my kids this weekend, so my season will actually start next Tuesday. But hunting over water early, got some nice deer and some nice bulls located. So yeah, I'm fired up to get out there. I'm starting off the season kind of hunting the non-traditional, non-romantic way that we're talking about, because I'm basically just sitting down over water and hunting bulls where they live versus where they're going to go to rut.
Right.
So I'm not chasing bugles. I'm not, even getting in the timber with them. I'm basically sitting down and hoping one of those big boys comes into water while I'm there. So it's not going to be the most exciting form, but I think just sort of based on my scouting, it could be pretty rewarding. So
hey,
we'll see what happens.
Let me ask you this. I know during shed season you found just an incredible set of antlers. Have you relocated that elk yet?
Well, that's.
And if you don't want to, and if you don't want to say, that's cool too.
No, that's the bull I'm focused on this year, and it's a cool story, cool hunt. I wouldn't even know this bull existed had I not found his sheds. I did go back through footage from last year, and turns out I did have one little video clip of him going through a clearing. Once I was able to like analyze it, I realized it was him. So I've been able to position him in this similar area twice. Once was in October, once was when I found his sheds, probably, in early March or late February. So I know this is where he lives. This isn't where he goes to rut. This is his place. So I have not turned him up yet. He maybe didn't make it. I don't know. I'm sure he's alive. I haven't turned him up, but I'm hunting. That's who I'm waiting for.
Isn't it amazing, like how quick you can just become obsessed with an animal and have like this relationship, and it can be such a small amount of history, and a lot of times it's not even antler size, but it's just the way that the things kind of come together. It just blows my mind how quick I can be just obsessed with this particular animal.
Oh yeah, I've got his shed antlers sitting right next to my chair in my living room, and every single night before I go to bed, I'm sitting in that chair looking at those sheds, just going, "Gosh, man, I hope I get to see you."
Yeah.
So
he is impressive.
So that brings up
it's going to be fun.
Interesting question. So I mean, with whitetails, I mean, there's if for instance, if we've got a big deer that summers on our properties, or or is there a specific time of the year, there's a good chance that he'll be back in that same area the next year during that same time frame. Is elk the same way? I mean, do they kind of keep the same home range, just on a much larger scale, or? I
think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it's just harder to keep track of them because of the areas they live. But I do think, I've got documentation of bulls year after year in similar areas, literally within 100 yards of where I had filmed them years before and stuff like that. So I do think they've got a range.
What's kind of the range of an elk? And that can include their rut range and everything else. But I mean, like, how big of an area do they cover throughout a year?
I mean, I think it depends.
Probably depends on the part of the country you're in.
You get out into that open eastern Montana, central to eastern Montana breaks country, or, out in some of that Montana where it's really wide open, more plains elk. I mean, those elk will, it's not uncommon for them to go 15, 20 miles, during a rut season from a bull to move that far.
Yeah.
But then, you put these bulls in the, in say, some of the more rugged mountains around Montana, maybe, like say the Crazy Mountains or the Bridgers or the Gallatin Range, or just stuff, more mountainous. I don't think those bulls are traveling that far. I think they're living in a much smaller area, maybe 5 to 10 miles most. And that also depends on if they're having to migrate. That Yellowstone Park herd, they'll migrate 150 miles and back, some of them. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's very, very area specific.
What hunt would you suggest, somebody that's never been out west, which one would you suggest that they come out and focus on for cost, ease of being able to do it, and for, safety? Say they want to do a DIY. What hunt, what game species would you suggest somebody, to kind of get their feet wet?
I'd recommend probably pronghorn.
Okay.
Do antelope. It's a great hunt. I love hunting antelope as much now as I did when I was a kid. I mean, they're so much fun. There's a ton of land to hunt them on. There's a ton of opportunity. As a non-resident, to come out, you're not just hunting the first hour of daylight and the last hour of dark. You can literally be out there all day, every day, seeing antelope on their feet, making stalks, moving around. So I think, to come out, get your feet wet, learn the country, not spend a ton of money, have a ton of opportunity, have a great hunt. Everybody gets sort of, stalks and whatnot. I think antelope is a great place to start, and just kind of, position yourself in areas where maybe you can be scouting for deer maybe the next year, or, something like that. And I think, that'll knock the edge off big time, to not feel so daunting and that you got to be in this ridiculous, mountain shape to come out here. I think there's a lot of factors that make that hunt the easy first transition into, Western hunting.
Jason, is when you come out and hunt public ground, and I'm sure every state's probably different, and even different public pieces of property are different, but like say for guys like us that we film our hunts, are we able to film on public ground out there in certain areas that you know of, or will we have to get permits, to film on public ground, or do you know anything about that?
Oh yeah, I'm dealing with it now.
I figured there was something there.
Yeah, and it's different, I mean, every state's different in what they want. Forest Service is different than BLM. So yeah, there's definitely film permits associated with doing anything commercial on public land. So yeah, I'm pulling a bunch of film permits for BLM right now, which is $150 processing fee just to apply. And then it's $250 a day per 5 mile area that you're hunting.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I mean, we went out to in turkey season. We went out and hunted the archery opener in the Nebraska around the Chadron area, and we ran into the same thing. Having to get permits to film out there. And I think that a lot of people that are probably unaware of that, especially small-time guys that don't, just the YouTubers and things, the guys that put their shows on there. But I think by law that even if you're going to put stuff on YouTube, you kind of got to get those permits lined out. So that's something that, anybody listening to this may want to look into.
Yeah, for sure. And I know I've actually talked to Secretary Zinke about this through an interview for Project Mule Deer, and he relayed the information that they're trying to do away with it. They'd like to see it gone because they understand, like, why should we have to pay to promote, the public lands? They should be paying us, really.
Yeah.
Right.
But the bottom line is, right now, it is a law. State by state's different. Some agencies are easier to work with than others. But it's, I just finished up a film that was on the Full Draw Film Tour this year. I shouldn't say I just finished it up. I finished it up about a year ago. But it's called Both Sides of the Fence, and it's actually on this topic. And so my buddy Sam, who films for me for elk season, Sam Solholt, who did like the public land bus.
Yeah, the bus.
Yeah, so Sam filmed on public land last year, and I filmed my elk hunt on private land, and we did a film called Both Sides of the Fence, and we talked about the pros and cons of hunting private land and public land. And that was really a big topic of it. Is you see these guys on TV, you see the guys on YouTube, you see anybody that's sort of what you would call in the limelight of hunting, and a lot of times they are on private land. But you know what? It's not because most of the time we need to be held by the hand. It's not because we need special favors. It's not because we're not good hunters and trying to look cool. It's because we have to live under a whole set of laws and regulations different than the average guy who just wants to go out with his boy for the day to go hunt public land. It is free to them. That's the beauty of it. But it's not free to me. And it actually is, in many cases, much more limiting and much more expensive than hunting on private land.
Oh, I can imagine.
So,
yeah.
I'm super proud of the film. I'm actually going to release it right at the end of this month because Full Draw Film Tour is sort of wrapped up this year's tour. So I'm excited to kick it out because it really brings issue to, like, look, I paid more money last year for film permits to hunt bighorn sheep where I drew my tag, then I could have leased a heck of a private ranch here to myself. So it's a double-edged sword. The other thing I talked about is the guy that wants to say, oh, it must be nice, why don't you come out and hunt where we hunt? Well, okay, so I have all year to be out there, and I can come out there. And do you really want that on TV? Because at the end of the day, the guy that says that, if you show up in his area, then he hates you for exposing the area.
Exactly.
Yep.
So there's always
sword.
Yeah. There's always that that banter back and forth between hunters, and that kind of sucks. But That's
for sure. So
that's reality. But I feel like there's a little bit of tension between public guys and private guys, and I'm a private guy. I mean, we both are. I mean, we grow up in Indiana. There's not the vast public lands, but I respect the hell out of it.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, it goes both ways. You know, I've been on private land where I'm sitting on private land looking at one of the biggest bulls I've ever seen on public land, and I can't go after him because I don't have a film permit.
No.
You know, it's like, think of it from the other side. I mean, think about seeing a bull on public land, which happens all the time in Montana, by the way, and not be able to chase it. That's the opposite.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't think about that side of it, that you literally feel so limited lots of times hunting private, because there's places that the elk know the fence lines, sure, but there's a vast majority where it's so checkerboarded and whatnot. Those elk are just moving through the country. You know, there's not even fence lines. So, but you got your onX maps, and boy, you better know where you're at. So, yeah, it's an interesting topic for sure, and it's not easy. I mean, you know, if I don't have a film permit pulled, I can see the biggest deer in the best spot to put a stock, and you know, feel good about getting a shot on him, and I can't even
pursue it.
Can't even take a step, and he's on public land. So there's definitely two ways of looking at it, and I just want to bring that more to the forefront too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very good.
So yeah, I'll be excited to share that film.
We're looking forward to seeing that one, and everything else too. That, I mean, you got going. And I've got to reiterate: anybody that's listening to this that has not seen Project Elk, you got to watch that. I mean, it is definitely worth your time. I know when it came out, we were all really excited in our group to watch that. We actually, I
came down here.
Yeah, we all came. Yeah, we came to one place.
Had a little viewing party.
Yeah, had a viewing party, man, and it didn't let us down. I'll tell you that. We really enjoyed it, and can't wait to see the sheep, Project Sheep, and then also Project Mule Deer and everything else that's going on. Wyatt, you got anything else for Jason? I know we've kept him for quite a bit of time here already.
No, hey Jason, we appreciate it. You know, just as hunters, we appreciate what you're doing, and everything. I know that that comes with a cost, and you are definitely at top notch at
the forefront.
Yeah, the forefront, of bringing awareness and doing what's good for hunters, doing what's good for wildlife, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you for that. And if you ever want to come to Indiana and learn why we hang tree stands on nothing areas, you're welcome to come. You always have a spot here with us. So,
man, I appreciate that, and I might take you up on that sometime, because I'm still yet to fill my kind of Midwest Eastern whitetail. Never got one out there, so might have to do that. But hey, I mean, thanks for the opportunity to talk. I'm sorry it took so long to connect, but I'm super glad we were able to make it happen before the season here. And thanks for everything you guys do to bring awareness to everything, and just the opportunity to let me sort of tell my story here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. And real quick before you go, just tell everybody where they can follow you at on social media and everything that you got going on, so they can check in with you.
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me at Jason Matzinger Official on Facebook and Jason Matzinger Official on Instagram. Project Elk is available on Amazon Prime. That's a great place to go watch it, and be watching for the Circle of Life September 10th and Project Mule Deer September 22nd.
Outstanding. Jason, good stuff, buddy. And,
yeah, thanks. Good luck this fall.
Yeah, good luck this fall. And if there's anything we can do to help you out, just don't hesitate to give us a shout.
Yeah, guys, likewise. Whenever you're ready to come try Montana, hit me up. I'd be happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Hey, we absolutely will, buddy. Woohoo!
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jason.
Well, what comes around goes around. So.
I hear you, buddy.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
You have a good day, Jason.
All right.
See you, buddy.
You too. Thanks again, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.